Hello, I'm Keith Rucker from VintageMachinery.org.
Hang on a minute. That's my line.
Oh, this is awkward. Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. Big shout out to Keith Rucker for having such a great sense of humor. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that happened a little bit later. But it's been a little while since I've done any kind of a shop update or an odds and ends. So I figured I'd put together just a few minutes of some of the stuff that I've brought into the shop and a few updates on some ongoing projects, and to share a little bit about a trip that I took up to the Milwaukee, Chicago area. Well, I finally received one of the rare 25% off, no exclusion coupons from Harbor Freight at a time in which I was actually prepared to use it. So I got one of these Yukon tool chests. Now I finally have a place to store all of these milling cutters and end mill holders and arbors and such for the Kearney and Trecker horizontal milling machine. I also used it as an opportunity to take back some shelf space and use it to store my drill indexes, as well as some other tooling that doesn't really get used all that often. This next thing I found on eBay, it's actually a name placard that was likely screwed to the side of one of the larger Kearney and Trecker machines. I doubt this is the original paint color. Maybe the off-white was on the lettering, but I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, if I'm going to leave it like this or if I'm going to sandblast it and repaint it, but this will end up being wall art. Well, this next item comes from a viewer, Robin, via Instagram, brass hammerhead that he had in his tool chest for 30 years and never made a handle for it. Well, hopefully it won't sit in my tool chest for 30 years. I just need to figure out how big of a hammer handle that I would want to put on this. Well, this was an unexpected gift that came into the shop this week. If you follow Mark Pressling, then you may have heard about Kyle on one of his recent videos. Well, when I heard about Kyle, I went and followed his Instagram. And wouldn't you know it, that Kyle was already a follower of mine. I didn't realize that. And he watches my YouTube videos, which was another pleasant surprise. So I asked him if I could get one of his stickers, and well, he went a little bit above and beyond. And not only did I get this great sticker, but he sent me a t-shirt as well. So I want to go over and get this put on my sticker door. I encourage you to go follow Kyle on Instagram. He's got a pretty remarkable and in some ways sad stories. He's had some tragedy in his life, not the least of which is depicted here in the sticker of the arsonist that burned down his motorcycle shop. Well, a few updates for the South Bend Lathe. I found a new compound for it. Some of you might remember that here on this front edge of the other one, it was pretty badly chewed up from, I don't know who the heck was crashing this thing, but they certainly did a number on it. But the opportunity came up to get this one as a replacement, and this will save me the hassle of having to either braze or JB weld up the other one. I also came across a collet lever closure. I got this at an excellent price. It was one of those prices that if I would have passed it up, I'd have been a fool. And along those same lines, I came across this taper attachment, and it's complete, including the telescoping crossfeed screw, and I think the only thing that is actually missing is the chip cover that goes on the extension, but all the hardware is here, the dial, everything. So this, again, was one of those things that if I passed it up, I'd be an idiot, and I try not to be an idiot very often. Well, something you may have noticed in the background of some recent videos is some wooden tool chests that I have sitting on the workbench, including this Gerstner. I'm using it to keep, some small hand tools, usually the ones that I'm going to grab anyway when I start taking something apart, like pin punches and hammers, little screwdrivers and such, as well as some brass drifts and even some other miscellaneous things like some thread gauges and some triangles and protractors. It's in kind of saddish shape. The felt is all but gone in most of the drawers, and the veneer that you can't see here on the back of the chest is peeling off pretty badly from some water damage. Well, sitting next to it is this other tool chest. I have yet to identify the manufacturer of this. This is not a Gerstner. I'm using it to store some stones, some round ones. I got some square ones in here, as well as, a set of calipers and a micrometer and things like that. Well, whenever I'm restoring a tool or a machine, I like to clean the parts in this ultrasonic cleaner. I've had this thing for a while. It's from Harbor Freight. It doesn't hold very much liquid, but the big thing is it will only run for about 6 minutes before it shuts itself off. So I ended up getting this 10-liter ultrasonic cleaner from Vanover. I'm going to be using this in an upcoming project, which I think is interesting. But mostly I wanted it for the increased capacity to clean these parts. I don't want anything too big because I won't have space for it. I do like the fact that it has a drain on the side of it, although I generally don't drain the ultrasonic cleaner because I put the parts in baggies and put degreaser in them. But this is going to come in handy when I start taking apart those other tools I mentioned and some that I'm going to be mentioning next. What, another rotary table, you ask? Yes, I picked up another rotary table. This is a Clarke U9 9-inch rotary table, and everything seems to function just great. It's a bit stiff, but the table is absolutely pristine. There's not a single mark on it. And this one will also work in the vertical orientation, which is, again, another feature I've been looking for on a rotary table. I do intend to publish a video on the teardown and rebuild of this. I'm hoping it's just going to be one video, which means I don't run into any major problems. Even though I do like this 8-inch rotary table, I think it just is a bit too small for what I do here in the shop, and I think this would be more suited to somebody with a smaller machine. So once I get the other one cleaned up, I'll go ahead and put this one up for sale. Well, I do like the Jacobs ball bearing chucks, and I found a couple of these at an auction and ended up being the high bidder. This one here is a 14N and seems to be in pretty decent shape. I don't think I'll have any issues getting this cleaned up. I'll take it apart and check the ball bearings and possibly replace them, but I don't think I'm going to have to do anything major to it. Getting this Morse taper shank out of here might be the biggest challenge. Well, I can't say the same thing about this monster size 20N Jacobs chuck. Now, I bought this thing because it's seized, so I got it relatively cheap. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get it apart and clean it up. It's a 3/8 to 1 inch capacity, which really is bigger than any of the machines that I have. It's got a 5 Jacobs taper in the back of it. So if I can get it cleaned up and I can get it operating, I'll check to see how much the servicing kit is for it, if it's even available, and I'll go ahead and put it up on Marketplace or whatever. And the profits from this are what I use to fund the other activities in my shop. Well, I bought this really super cheap MIT vise. I have no idea who makes it. It's missing a jaw, but it is about 5 inches across, which is a good size for me. Anything bigger than that is just too big for my shop. But to say it has problems would be a bit of an understatement. It's going to take a little bit of repair, clean up, maybe making a new set of jaws out of some O1 or A2 tool steel. but after that, we'll find a place to mount it on one of my benches. Well, this is another one of those items that I intend to clean up and put up for sale in order to raise money for the South Bend Lathe project. This is a hard-hinge dividing head. I have never seen one of these before. I didn't even know it existed, but it's in pretty dirty shape, although it seems to function just fine. I don't know if the ratio here is the same 40-to-1 that I see on the other dividing heads I've owned. Well, the chuck attached to it is a 6-inch 3-jaw buck true adjust chuck. And other than being dirty, it's in pretty good shape. I don't see any major issues with the jaws. Now, it is a bit stiff, but outside of that, it does seem to be in really good shape. And because I think it's interesting, I'm probably going to publish a video on the dividing head and taking it apart and cleaning it, putting it back together. Again, I don't know if that's going to be one video or multiple, but I don't anticipate that I'm going to run into too many issues with it. Well, included in this auction lot was this other chuck, I'll call it. It's got a threaded back on it, but I'm not exactly sure what it's used for. It doesn't have your traditional jaws on it. It just has these hold downs on the front of it. Anybody knows what this might have been used for, leave a comment down below. I think it's interesting, but it's nothing that I'm going to keep. Well, as I mentioned at the start of the video, I had taken a trip up to Milwaukee to visit my friend Ron Grundy, hoping to get some details on how he indicates a machine when he's trying to scrape in opposing dovetails and stuff like that. I was also there to kind of go through some of the drawings and publications that he has from K&T, looking for some information that might help me out with my machine, as well as helping out a friend of mine who's looking for a drive gear for his 2H machine. And while I was there, Ron also got a visit from a couple of other folks that you might recognize, Keith Rucker and Clarke Easterling, and it was fun spending a couple hours kind of chit-chatting. And this was the first of 3 states that I would run into these two fellas over the next 4 days. Well, after visiting with Ron for an afternoon, I headed down into the Chicago, Illinois area and hung out with my friend Kyle Vanover from Vanover Machine and Repair for a couple of days. Kyle was kind enough to give us a tour of his shop, and I even participated in a little bit of impromptu YouTubing where I recorded his process of making a couple of pins for a lowboy trailer. I made a video of that and I published it a little bit ago. I'll put a link up here in the upper right hand corner for you. Well, that Saturday I headed over to the Illinois Railway Museum and met up with some other YouTubers like Tom here from Tom's Rabbit Hole. Of course, everyone knows Lyle Peterson, Tubal Cain, or Mr. Pete 222. It was good to see him again. And Kyle Vanover came down outside of his natural habitat of his machine shop. And this is Stefano Bertelli. He's got an open source DRO project he has up on the internet. And he's been helping me with getting it running on one of my machines. I called my wife to tell her that I was bringing home this 48-inch Monarch, that she needed to move her car out of the garage so I could get it in there. She wasn't amused. Well, I did manage to bring home a few things from ArnFest. This first item is a Korean Tracker 50 taper centering plug. It is used in the 2H and other machines for centering the drive gear for a universal head. Now, this is not for one of my machines. It is for a viewer. A viewer reached out to me a while ago saying he was looking for something like this. I happened to see it at ArnFest, and I was able to go ahead and purchase it on his behalf. Now, there's not a whole lot that's special about this Craftsman tap handle other than it's a size that I didn't have. Well, I wasn't the first one to buy this tool holder. Tom from Tom's Rabbit Hole actually saw it just as I was and ended up buying it first, but I ended up buying it from him. Anyway, it's a tool holder for these small high-speed steel tool bits. I see Adam Booth using a tool holder this quite often on his videos, and it's something that I've actually wanted because I've got a bunch of small tool bits like this, and it's really a pain to put those in a traditional quick change tool holder. Well, there is something special about this tap handle, I suppose. It's a Starrett 91A, and again, it was just a size that I didn't currently have, and I thought $15 was a pretty daggone good bargain for it. I've been slowly trying to convert over all of my micrometers from thousandths reading to tenths reading, and also from import to US manufacturer, and saw this on one of the tables. It's a 3 to 4 inch tenths reading micrometer from Brown and Sharp. Well, and this is a Pratt & Whitney machinist level that is non-functioning. The vial itself is broken, and it is pretty daggone rusty. The bottom of it has all sorts of surface rust on it. I only gave Mr. Pete $12 for it, which is what he was asking, so I might just end up cleaning it up and sticking it on my shelf. Well, lastly, I found this wooden tool chest for sale. I have not been able to identify a manufacturer of it. It had some of these sun and honing stones in the bottom. I have no interest in those whatsoever because I don't have a hone, but it would look like it was in okay condition. The lock on it is broken, but it does have the key. It did have this odd looking tool in one of the drawers. I have no idea. The quarter is just there for, I guess, size, but I have no idea what this has been used for. Maybe some sort of a watchmaker's tool. If you happen to know what this might have been used for, please leave a comment down below. I think it's interesting. It's got a name on the side of it, Mon Bros, I think, and that it's patent pending, but there's really nothing else on here that might indicate what it was for. Well, many of you already know that Keith Rucker and Clarke Easterling are on a bit of an epic road trip, and that road trip took them right through the Cleveland, Ohio area, which is where I am from. I had sent Keith an email a while back when he announced his trip that he might want to consider getting a tour of the Midwest Railway Preservation Society, a rail yard nonprofit that I volunteer at. So I worked out the logistics of getting some folks to let us into the roundhouse on that Monday morning. However, Keith and Clarke were going to be coming into the Cleveland area on Sunday evening. I invited Keith if he'd like to come by and check out the shop that he was a big part in inspiring me to put together, and he graciously accepted. But not only that, but Keith invited me to come out and have dinner with him and Clarke. So we met up at a local restaurant, delicatessen, that I like to go to with my family. And after dinner, we came over to the shop, and I was able to give them this nickel tour. Well, I can't stress enough just how nice these two gentlemen are. They came in and met my family, had dinner with me and my son, got to meet one of my granddaughters and my wife, and it was just great just to kind of hang out with them for a little bit and just kind of talk about hobby machining. And Keith even offered up some tips when I start rebuilding that other South Bend lathe and some stuff to look out for. Well, the following morning, I met up with Keith and Clarke down at the Roundhouse, and one of our trustees and our lead machinist, Pete, gave them a tour of the machine shop and the other facilities, as well as gave a little bit of a history of the organization itself and some of the rolling stock. Keith was recording some video for his channel, so I'm sure you can check that out over there. Well, it was great to see Keith again and to meet Clarke, and they are two of the nicest people I've ever met and would ever want to meet. There have been two things in my life that have generated better friends and more friends than anything else I've ever experienced, even going all the way back to grade school and high school years. And the first of those is when I bought a Jeep. I bought that Jeep in 2013, and some of the people I met that year are still some of my best friends today. And it even enabled me to reconnect with one of my best friends from high school, where we hadn't talked for 10 years for no reason other than just kind of growing apart and going our own ways. But that Jeep has built some friendships that you know that if you need them, you can call them, and no matter what the situation is, they're going to drop everything and come and help you out. And the second thing really is getting into this machining hobby and starting a YouTube channel. I've met more really good people that are also YouTube machinists or just content creators or just hobby machinists through the YouTube channel. And they're, again, some of my best friends that I have today. I really do count myself as amongst the blessed that I've been able to establish some new friendships and rekindle some old ones, all because of a common vehicle and a common hobby in making YouTube videos. Before they left, I asked Clarke if he had any of his YouTube channel stickers, and he just happened to have some on him. So I was able to get one from him. So let's go over to the sticker board and add it. Well, I still have plenty of room for stickers on the sticker board. So if you have a sticker, whether you're a YouTube content creator or not, send me an email. I'd love to have it. If you'd like one of mine, again, you don't have to have a YouTube channel. You might just need it to plug a hole in the side of your pool. Give me your email, your address, and I will drop one in the mail to you. You do not need to send me one in return. I'm just happy to be able to send it to you. Well, that's going to be it for this video. While you weren't looking, I went ahead and disassembled the taper attachment and the collet lever, getting them ready to be cleaned up and repainted. I'd like to thank all those that are subscribers to the channel. If you're not, consider hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and hitting that bell icon will let you get notified whenever I publish a new video. And of course, a special thanks to all those that have participated in supporting the channel through either Patreon or PayPal. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.